Today we're going to be talking about the Vanu Sovereignty's Light Machine Gun Directive, rewarding you with the Betel 54A. In a nutshell, this directive is absolutely worth going for, if you play heavy. The Betel is an excellent reward. It is built on the Orion, so you're already got a good weapon going out of the box, and you get heat, which is really, really good on this thing. It's a good weapon, it's a competitive weapon, and if you frequently find yourself playing heavy, or would like a first directive weapon to go for on Vanu, the Betel is absolutely worth your time. The problem is, the directive itself is filled with weapons, and outside of 2, maybe 3 standouts, the whole lineup is just kind of So, unfortunately, you kind of suffer from a mediocre directive, but the Betel is absolutely worth the grind. It's really, really good. It's been nerfed recently, or an arsenal rather, but it's still great. It's still a very, very good weapon. Absolutely worth getting. So, for the weapons that you'll be needing to do for it, well, you gotta do 5, but you have a pretty healthy lineup of LMGs here. It's pretty good, all things considered. Going from left to right, of course, the flare I did not do. The flare is not bad, but it is 577 at 167. It's just kind of okay. If you really, really want a 167 LMG, you're better off with the Ma, which is pretty much just flat out better than this thing, but it's okay. It's not anything particularly special, but it works. It's a filler axiom, and unfortunately that's deal with a lot of these things. 15M should be in your lineup. It's extremely easy to use. If you know what you're doing and you have the mechanical skill to chain headshots, it just shreds people. Absolutely worth an axiom. I love the thing. It's really fun. It's a fun gun to use. It works well. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It's an NS15. They're also dirt cheap and they're in like so many bundles it's not even funny. But you will need to do either the M1, the M2, or the black or gold variants. Just keep in mind. I don't even remember if they put the Naginata in the standard directives or not, but the Naginata is... I would skip it. It's not that good. I hate it, in fact. It's just not worth doing. Low DPS, bad gimmick. Skip it. Orion is your starter option. It is very good. It's probably your best option altogether. It's a 750 at 143 LMG. It's easy to use. It's got a fast reload. It's got a good hipfire accuracy. It's great. It's just a great weapon. And, of course, it's free. So, there's no reason not to do it. It's just really, really good. And, honestly, it's probably the very best weapon here in this list. And that's pretty unfortunate. The Pulsar LSW is... it's okay. And we're going to take this time to actually talk about its sister weapon, the SVA. Because quite frankly, they are extremely similar weapons. And I put the metal on them both. So, the main differences between the Pulsar and the SVA is that the Pulsar gets better reload speed, and I found slightly better recoil. Whereas the SVA gets 10 meters a second more velocity and better hipfire accuracy. They are both extremely, extremely similar weapons. There's a slight difference in recoil feel between the two. Other than that, pick your poison, I guess. There's not really a whole lot to say about them. They're very, very similar. You can take Unstable on the SVA, I wouldn't, but if you want to make it kind of funny in comparison, you can, but these two weapons are both very, very similar. Honestly, you can Araxium them both, and you'll feel like you're doing the same gun twice. Ursa. I've hardly used it. However, it's not very popular. And it's also not that good if you read the stats. 550 at 167 is pretty on the low end for main weapon DPS, and while you do get a decent mag and you get high velocity, you do get unstable here, but I would probably just skip it. It's fine, but from what I've heard, it's pretty subpar. Ma is absolutely worth putting your Axiom on, however. 600 at 167, it feels a lot like an Anchor if you've ever played NC. It's got decent damage output, it's got good stats elsewhere, it looks cool. It gets access to Unstable if you really want to run it. It gets access to the Vented Power Core if you really want to run it. It's not bad. Yeah, I'd say it's worth doing. It's one of the better LMGs here, but The Polaris. I nearly called it the Pulsar. That would have been unfortunate. The Polaris is tricky. It's very tricky, in fact. It's a 659 at 143. However, that's 20 meters of 143 range, and that is very, very notable. But that's low DPS. That's still putting you in Naginata level. Reload speed is decent, velocity is decent, you get a big mag, and what's notable about this weapon is you get a really good hipfire accuracy. You get really, really good hipfire accuracy with this thing. It's pretty similar to the Orion, but it's ever so slightly better. I would probably skip it, but it is a fine filler. Ultimately, the problem with all these LMGs at the end of the day is most of them are not bad, they're just not anything noteworthy or good outside of the Orion, the Maw, and maybe the 15M, depending on your skill set. So it basically comes down to Arax Orion, Arax Maw, pick your poison on the rest. There's not really any wrong options, they're just kind of all ugh. Which lends you with the Betelgeuse. So the Betelgeuse is basically an Orion that's been tweaked ever so slightly and given heat. In fact, if you compare the stats, the only notable difference is that the Betelgeuse loses 5 rounds in its magazine, quote-unquote, it's heat-based, in exchange for always having a short reload if you manually reload it. It's good. It's quite good, in fact. There's honestly little reason, in my opinion, to bring an Orion over the Betelgeuse once you have it, and given that the Orion was already the standout weapon on NS, or on VS rather, for the LMGs, it's hard to justify bringing anything else. It's good. It's really good for farming, because as long as you're just checking your sight a little bit before you start switching targets and firing again, you'll put a couple bullets back in the mag, and because you're heavy, you sync really, really well with heat, because you'll always be pushing, playing aggressively, or if you're just sitting back and farming, you'll never have to sit there and reload like an idiot while someone rushes straight into you and shoots you in the head. It's great. It might take a little bit to get down, figuring out the heat mechanic. For example, a lot of players, when they get into heat, myself included, you'll probably manually reload it a lot by accident out of habit. But once you get rid of that habit, and you just learn to constantly keep the gun sustained, it's great. It's really, really nice. It's great for farming. It's good for 1v1ing, because it's your highest DPS LMG on this faction, tied with Orion. And it's just comfy. It's very, very comfy. So, oh, and it looks pretty sick too. It looks pretty sick too. So, in conclusion, it's a good directive. It's probably the first Vanu directive I'd recommend going for. It's a good weapon. The weapons here are just kind of but the Betelgeuse itself is really, really good. It's easily worth running for, because it's basically just the weapon on Vanu once you get it, if you're playing heavy. So, I'd say it's worth it. If you don't play heavy, I think you could probably stay away from it in favor of something else. And it's not so strong over the Orion that it's a must-have, but it's very nice to have. So, thank you all, and I will see you all again another time. Bye!